Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Howie Heckman, one of the developers here at PTS, and I have the honor and privilege of actually announcing our new release of TracerPlus in the webinar today. So TracerPlus 8.0 is now available. So I'm going to be going through some of the new features of the application, kind of do a live demonstration of the product today, and kind of show you how everything works, all the new changes, the new features, and everything within TracerPlus and TracerPlus Desktop. And then, as always, at the end of the webinar, if you guys have any questions as I'm going along here, just please feel free to type them away in your question panel. Send them over. I'll try to get to as many as possible. So with that, again, I'd like to announce that TracerPlus 8.0 is now available. So if you go to TracerPlus.com and download the free trial, you will be downloading version 8.0. And 8.0 will be available for both Windows Mobile as well as Android platforms, which I'll get into in just a little bit and show you how that all works. And you can go to TracerPlus.com and download that today. In just a second, I'll jump over to the website and show you that, because I'd like to briefly touch on the installation of TracerPlus to the two different platforms. So what's new in TracerPlus 8.0? Well, first off, it does now, TracerPlus now supports the Android operating system. So not only can you deploy to your existing Windows Mobile or Windows CE-based devices, you can now deploy to the Android operating system, anything with Android 2.2 and above. So you can take the same applications that you've deployed to Windows-based devices and now deploy them to Android. The only change there really is pushing out the Android client, the TracerPlus Android application, to your Android device and then just deploying that same project. And I'll go through a demonstration of how that works in just a little bit here. But you can just basically take the same thing that you've been using maybe for years on the Windows-based devices and now deploy them to Android. The syncing tools, as well as the TracerPlus Desktop design tool, those are the same across both platforms. So you'll only be using one development environment to deploy, to design and deploy your mobile applications, and one syncing tool, TracerPlus Connect, to move your data back and forth to either a Windows-based device or a TracerPlus Connect, an Android-based device. So you can using those same tools support both platforms. So it also makes it for a seamless switch between Windows Mobile and Android. All you really need to do is upgrade to TracerPlus 8.0, deploy your project to even an existing Windows-based device, install TracerPlus on your Android device, and just deploy that same project. So it should be a seamless switch between the two platforms. You can add additional Android devices to your existing deployment and now just use that same project that you worked on in possibly for years and deploy it to the Android devices out in the field. This also opens up opportunities for different tablet devices. In the past, a lot of the Windows mobile devices had smaller screens. They were kind of restricted in the type of devices you can use and just the real estate on the forms. With many of these Android devices that you see now, there's tablets available with large screens, very high-resolution displays. And so now TracerPlus Desktop supports those types of devices as well, so that you can not only deploy to a smaller, older Windows-based device, but you can also utilize that nice big real estate on the Android device and kind of design your forms around that type of application. And lastly, I'll get into something that we're pretty excited about. We have completely redesigned the user interface, the GUI in TracerPlus Desktop. And we really tried to streamline it so that it's easy as possible to use. And we really think that it's much smoother, easier to use than the older versions of TracerPlus Desktop. So I'll be going through that in just a little bit here, and you can see the difference between the older version 7 and previous to now the new version 8 user interface. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump over to the TracerPlus.com website. So let me hop out of the PowerPoint here. I'm just going to pull up the website so you guys can see how the installation would be done for TracerPlus 8.0. So here is TracerPlus.com. If you'd like to trial and download the application, just go to TracerPlus.com and click on the trials link up on the top here. And now you'll see on our download page, the download free trial link here now points to version 8.0. You can just go ahead and click this link, fill out the form, and download TracerPlus 8.0 and install it onto your PC. So that'll just download a simple installer, as many of you are familiar with. Just run through the installer, hit next a couple of times. That'll then open up TracerPlus Desktop at the end of the installation. Okay, so I already have it installed on my PC here, and I have it on the home screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Okay, so here's TracerPlus 8.0, the new home screen. This is what you'll be presented with after installation. So after you step through the installation of TracerPlus Desktop, you will see this screen here. It allows you to do things like starting new projects, opening existing projects, or downloading from our Solution Center, which I'll go through in a minute. But the other thing you need to do after installing this application is then install TracerPlus 8.0 to your handheld or your mobile device. And that can be either a Windows-based device or an Android-based device. And in order to do that, what you do is just make sure either one of those types of devices are in the cradle or connected via USB. Go up to the Tools menu here, and now there's an option here for Install TracerPlus to Device. When you hover over that, you'll see the two options for Windows Mobile or Android. If you click Windows Mobile, it will start up another little wizard to install to the connected device. So you just hit Next a couple of times. When you're done with that, it'll open up TracerPlus automatically on the handheld, and you'll be ready to deploy your projects. For Android, it's slightly different. What you do is click Android here. It'll bring up a dialog that'll bring you to a site where you can download and install the TracerPlus client application for an Android device. And there's two options here currently for installing TracerPlus on your Android device. One is if you have a QR code scanner, you can scan the QR code on this website and it'll automatically install TracerPlus for you. Or if you use your browser on the Android device, you can navigate to this location and download the APK file, and this will automatically install it as well through the browser. The last method that we will be adding, we are going to be posting TracerPlus to the Google Play Store. So you'll be able to find it in Google Play and download it and install it through that as well. So that'll be even a little bit easier for you. But currently the two options are just scan this QR code if you have a QR code scanner on your device, or just navigate to this page on your Android device and click on this link here, and it'll download and install the application. Okay, and that'll do the same thing that the Windows Mobile installation does. It basically just installs TracerPlus on your mobile device, and now you'll have an Android device ready to go, and you can begin deploying TracerPlus applications to that Android device as well. Okay, so now I'm going to actually hop into kind of a live demonstration of TracerPlus 8.0, show you some of the new features, how you deploy to the two different platforms. I have a Windows mobile-based device as well as an Android emulator hooked up to my PC here. So I basically have the two types of devices hooked up to my PC. I'm going to show you how you can deploy to either of them. So here's my Android emulator on the screen here. This, if I go to the application menu here, you can see TracerPlus is already installed. I have the TracerPlus mobile client. And then on my Windows-based devices, I'm actually sharing the screen on the Windows-based device here. This is just the home screen of kind of an older version of Windows Mobile, but you'll see how both of these platforms will be supported. I can deploy to not only this Windows Mobile device, but my connected Android device as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump back over to TracerPlus Desktop. Minimize this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start by downloading a sample application from our Solution Center. And a lot of the samples that we have on our website, although we're adding new ones all the time, were designed for the smaller screen sizes of Windows Mobile. So what I thought I'd do today is actually download a sample and show you how you can deploy it to the Windows Mobile device, but also change the screen size a little bit so that we can push it down to our Android device, which has a much higher resolution display. So to search our online Solution Center, all you do is on the home screen of TracerPlus Desktop, jump over to the Samples link here on the home screen. Go ahead and search the samples that we have on our website, and you can search through the different categories here. We have things like asset tracking, inventory, and so on. I'm going to actually pick an inspection form. So in the inspection category, you'll see all of the applications that we have already deployed to, or already available on our Solution Center, and these are all free to use, and you can modify them as you need them. I'm going to go ahead and pick this motor vehicle safety inspection. These are inspection forms are sometimes good for these larger tablets because you have so much real estate on them that the inspection forms kind of lay out nicely using those larger screens. So here you can see it'll give you a screenshot and a description of what this application does. It gives you a screenshot of what it looks like. And you'll notice that here this is deployed, the screenshot is actually to a Windows-based device, and it's a kind of smaller screen here. So to finish the import, you just go ahead and step through this little wizard, hit the import button, hit finish. When you finish importing from our Solution Center, it'll open the application up automatically within TracerPlus Desktop. And at this point, if you wanted to, it's already pre-configured, so you can just go ahead through the deployment process and just push it down to the mobile device. So really all you do is come up here to Tools, Build, Deploy, or you can click this Build Deploy button down here, and then actually just hit the Deploy button to your connected device, and you'll have this vehicle safety inspection form available on the handheld. So the Build Deploy form has changed a little bit in version 8, and the only thing it now includes is the platform that you'd like to deploy to. So it defaults here, in this case, to Windows Mobile. That's based on a project setting. But if you wanted to deploy to an Android device, you simply select Android from the drop-down and then deploy to your connected Android device. And now you're taking the same application that was originally built for a Windows-based device, and you're deploying it to an Android-based device. So you would just basically hit this deploy button here. I'm going to deploy to my emulator. Okay, it'll go through a little deployment process, and the deployment process is identical between the two platforms. It's going to take your project, push it down to the handheld, open up the application when it's done, and now it's fully configured with the project that you're currently working on within TracerPlus Desktop. So in this case, it's this vehicle inspection form, and it'll be available on the mobile device ready to use. So our Solution Center is really an easy way of seeing how the application works, because you can go ahead and download a sample from our website, open it up in the application. There's a deployment done for Android. Open it up in the application, and you can start using the form already. So it's a really quick way of seeing how features work, getting up and running with something that may be pretty close to what you're looking for. Actually, I wanted to deploy that to the Windows-based device as well. So I just deployed it to the Android device. I will actually go ahead now and deploy it to Windows Mobile. And you can see the only thing I'm doing is changing the platform that I'd like to deploy it to. If I open up this Windows Mobile device, hit deploy, it'll go through the same deployment process, but this time it's just pushing it to the Windows-based device. It'll open up TracerPlus when it's complete. You see it has the vehicle inspection form that was pre-created in this safety inspection application. And if I were to open it up, you'll see that it looks like what you saw on the website there. So pretty quickly and easily, you're able to, using version 8, download from our Solution Center and deploy pre-configured projects. I'll just to show you how this looks here. If I go to the form designer in TracerPlus Desktop, you can see this is what the form looks like. And when I deployed it to the handheld, it looks the same over here. And that'll be the same for the Android device as well. Okay. But the one thing I do want to change here is actually this form here was designed for this smaller Windows or lower resolution display. So I'm going to actually increase the size of this so that you can see how you might deploy a larger application to an Android tablet or just an Android phone or something like that. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to jump back over to TracerPlus Desktop just to kind of touch on maybe some of the new features here and show you the new layout. The project properties have been revamped here. In both of the project properties as well as your session settings, we've introduced this new toolbar, this kind of navigation toolbar in the application. So no longer are these kind of broken out in the list box like many of you may be familiar with. All of the main categories for each section here, so for the session settings, are available through this easy-to-use navigation toolbar, and they're kind of broken out by category. Same with the project settings. So at the project level, you have easily accessible admin area as well as just your basic project settings. So if you want to do something like user logins or something like that, you can configure that here in the admin area. In the launcher section, we've added a new feature for customizing your launcher. So this is the home screen you see on TracerPlus when it's been deployed. You saw that when I deployed it here to this device. You can customize the screen now using this custom launcher. And that'll allow you to kind of define what these tabs look like, as well as you can do like different icons for your different applications. So here you may want to put like a little vehicle or something icon. Maybe if you deployed like an inventory application, you could create a different icon for that you could deploy to the device. But that's new for version 8 as well. And then lastly, there's the Connect settings, and this is where you define how the handheld is communicating to our TracerPlus Connect application, so you can sync your data back and forth between the handhelds out in the field and a back-end database, Excel spreadsheet, or text file. And one thing I'd like to touch on here for version 8 is another pretty big feature for TracerPlus Connect as well as the handheld. You can now configure what are called live sessions. And what a live session is it's a session that doesn't try to store its data locally on the handheld when you save it. So say, for instance, this vehicle inspection form. Right now, if I were to fill out this vehicle inspection, it's saving the vehicle inspection data locally to this handheld. And then later on, either through the Cradle or over Wi-Fi, I need to sync that data back to my database. If you were to make this a live session, when you fill out this vehicle inspection form, it fills out all that data that you fill out on the form and hit submit or hit save for that data. It's going to try to post it over the air to your TracerPlus Connect database table that you've selected for your live session. So it's going to first attempt to push that live. And also, if it's a live session and you're doing something like a lookup, and a lookup is where you say scan a barcode and look up a description of an item, and it pulls that information up on the form, that lookup will happen real time as well. So rather than looking for that data locally on the device, it's going to try to connect to TracerPlus Connect, grab the data from your database table or Excel spreadsheet, and bring that across back to the handheld so that you're grabbing that data live from your database table. So it's no longer looking locally, and you don't have to keep all of the handhelds kind of in sync as to what data is available. They're all going to be going back to that one spot. Okay, and there's other features there that I won't get into too in-depth today, but for things like if you're out of range with your live sessions and you don't have communication back to TracerPlus Connect, it'll allow you to continue working. You can save all the data locally on the device. And one of the neat features with that is when you do go back into range, TracerPlus on the handheld, on either Android or Windows Mobile, will automatically reconnect with TracerPlus Connect, and any data that was modified on the handheld or posted on the handheld while you're out of range will automatically be sent to the TracerPlus Connect server. So for some of you that may have been familiar with our old wireless server product, that was kind of a little bit of a manual process. When you went back into range, you had to say, okay, I want to try to connect to my wireless server application and then send that data. At that point, you'd have to press a button for sending data. This happens kind of behind the scenes. It'll automatically say, hey, I'm reconnected to TracerPlus Connect. Go ahead and send all those records back over to my database. So there's no user interaction there to do that. Okay, so that's the kind of the project settings, the global settings for this project. In the session settings, for each form that you create for your mobile device, you'll have a session settings tab here. And all of your session settings are grouped into these different areas. So field settings, this is where you're adding all of the fields of data that you'd like to collect on your form, on your mobile form. You have your form designer section. This is where you're kind of in drag and drop changing what the form looks like, maybe adding a company logo, things like that, really customizing what it looks like. And for many of you that may want to try these Solution Center samples, this is where you can take the sample that you downloaded from our Solution Center just on this welcome screen here and go ahead and change what the form looks like. So if you wanted to just take this pre-configured app and add a company logo to it, you could do that. Just go ahead and play with the form designer. But all this layout has kind of been updated and improved. It's easier to use. There's a new data capture area at the session settings. So previously, data capture, that was turning on and off the barcode scanner or the RFID scanner if you had one, and that was done at a project level. So every session or every form that you had on the mobile device was respecting just the global project setting. So if you turned off the barcode scanner at the project level, you did not have that barcode scanner in any one of your forms on the device. Now that's been moved to a session level so that in one session you may want to use the barcode scanner. Maybe in another session you set up a, maybe in this case here I have a vehicle inspection form, I may want to use the barcode scanner. But if I added a physical inventory form that I wanted to utilize RFID, in that session I could turn off the barcode scanner, turn on the RFID scanner, and now I can just pull that trigger and start reading everything in inventory and capturing all that information. But that's been moved to a session level, so you have control over those different settings for the barcode scanner and the RFID scanner at a session level. If you're not using TracerPlus Connect, the import-export settings are available through the navigation bar. So if you're not synchronizing your data through a Cradle, Wi-Fi, or a live session, you can still import and export your data to a flat text file or HTML file or XML file, something like that, directly on the device using these import and export settings. There's also a shortcut here if you did want to check out TracerPlus Connect to jump over to that as well. The printing and messaging settings are also available. These are similar in the setup of both of them. You can print custom print formats from TracerPlus 8.0 as well as send custom email reports from TracerPlus 8.0. This will work in either Windows Mobile or Android in just the same way. For printing, there is a new option for Bluetooth on the Android devices, so you would just select Bluetooth from the connection type, and then when you select Bluetooth, you would just put the pair name in of the printer. So once you pair up with the printer on your Android device, you usually give it a Bluetooth name, or a pair name. You would just enter that into the Bluetooth settings, and then TracerPlus will attempt to print to that printer every time you do a file print or something from your form. Okay, so all of these settings here are grouped up in this easy-to-use navigation bar. It's kind of grouped in, we think, an easier to use way than what TracerPlus 7.0 and previous had been. Those kind of broke out the session settings from the field settings and form designer. But this navigation bar, we think, makes it a lot easier to use. But as always, as you guys are playing with it, feel free to send us feedback on what you think of these updates. Okay. So with that, I just want to jump back over. I'm going to do a deployment to my Android device here, but I do want to change this form, because if I were to deploy this form to my Android device right now, it would kind of be a little bit smaller on that screen, because the screen has a much higher resolution display than the Windows mobile device. So what I'm going to do in order to accomplish that is I'm going to go to this Form Properties button up on the top. Okay, and this is new for version 8 as well. If I were to select a new resolution here, you can have it so that it automatically scales your form to match that resolution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double the size of this, because the resolution on my emulator here, my Android device, is actually twice that of the Windows Mobile. It might be a little bit more. But what I'll do is I'll go here to this drop-down. I'm going to select Custom. Okay, and I'm going to double the size of this, 480 by 536. Okay, and now since I have this automatically scale form to match checked, when I hit Apply, it's going to redo my form and kind of scale everything on the form to that size. So you can see the font size increased, the field sizes increased, their width, and so on. So you didn't really have to do anything in order to, just make the screen size bigger and then start dragging controls bigger, changing font sizes. Kind of, if you have that checkbox checked there, it'll take everything on the form and kind of scale it for you, including increasing font sizes and things like that. Okay, so with that, I'll just go ahead maybe and deploy this over to my Android device so you can see that that change on that platform as well. So I'll go ahead to the Tools, Build, Deploy, or again, you can just hit this Deploy button down the bottom left here. Change the platform to what you need it. Maybe just to briefly touch on this before I do the deployment, or I'll start the deployment here. Some Android devices will connect in different ways to your PC. The three options we have here, which should cover almost all Android devices, are a portable device, or MTP, which could be the default for most people, especially on newer Android devices. You can also use the Android Debug Bridge, and that's if you go into the developer options on the handheld and say, allow USB debugging. If you turn that on and you have the ADB installation installed on your device, on your PC, I should say, you can use this option to deploy to your handheld as well. The last option is a mapped drive. Some of the older devices will connect as like a USB thumb drive. They'll be assigned like a drive letter. So if that's the case, you would just pick this, and I don't have any connected. That's why it's grayed out right now. But you would see something like you could check this, and then from this drop down here, you could select G: or whatever the drive letter may be, and then just hit the deploy button. But just note that some of the devices, they connect in different ways, and that's why we've given you these different options here for deploying to the device. For most people, I think the MTP method up on the top here, which is the default, should be good. When you have that option selected, you'll see your different Android devices populated in this list, and in some cases it'll grab things like Windows Mobile as well. But you would just pick the Android device you'd like to deploy to. Okay, so, excuse me. I just deployed that to my Android device, and I'm going to go over to Android, and I'm going to open up TracerPlus here. So I'll just click on my TracerPlus icon. This will launch the TracerPlus application. And we've kind of tried to make it look very similar to the Windows Mobile side so that there's not too many changes between the two platforms. So here you'll see it'll be loading the sessions that get deployed. It'll open the application up. The home screen looks similar. The icon here in this case is slightly shifted over. But you'll see that it'll have the one session that was designed in this TracerPlus Desktop project now available on the home screen. And again, you can see it looks similar to the Windows Mobile side in that you have the one session available. If I were to open this application up here, you'll see that the form now has scaled to the size that I just set in the TracerPlus Desktop Form Designer. If I did not scale this form like you saw before by doubling the size of it, this form would be roughly a quarter of the screen probably. And that's due to the much higher resolution display on the Android devices. But you can see I basically took that same project other than the form size and deployed it now to both Windows Mobile as well as Android. And you can see I'm running the same application in that case. So it's the same vehicle inspection form available on both platforms. And you guys can do this with your existing projects that you already have out in the field. What you would wind up doing in that case is just go over to the welcome screen, open the project that you may already be running, play with the screen size if you need to. You can also just deploy this as is, but you can play with the screen size and then deploy it to either a tablet or whatever Android type device that you may have. One thing to note on the Android device is if you don't scale this, you can also zoom on the Android device as well. So if I did deploy this with like a quarter screen size of that form, you can actually using your finger zoom to that form and actually have it just scale to the size of the form anyway. But if you wanted to play with extra real estate through TracerPlus Desktop, you would just scale your form through these properties here and then kind of move controls around as needed. But that's useful for things like the bigger tablet devices. Okay, so with that, I thought I'd jump into today just maybe touch on how to maybe make a couple changes to this project here. So you can see those changes reflected on the mobile devices that we have connected to my PC. So right now I downloaded this inspection application from our Solution Center. But if you really wanted to add to this and really use the power of TracerPlus Desktop, you can go ahead and in your Project Explorer start adding forms to your project. So right now, like you saw on the device, it only has that one project available. One form available, vehicle inspection. But within TracerPlus Desktop, you can deploy up to 32 separate mobile applications, or what we call sessions. So to do that in your project, you would simply add them as you need them in your Project Explorer here, and then just configure them for whatever application you'd like to do. So not only do you have this vehicle inspection application, but if you wanted to do something like I mentioned before, an inventory app, you would go ahead and just name your inventory session and then begin configuring the fields of that session. So in this case, you may just start using the field settings to do things like maybe let's do a location, part number, description, which maybe you want to populate automatically via a lookup or something like that, maybe a quantity field. But you're really just adding all of the fields of information that you'd like to this application. You're removing the fields you're not using. It'll add some defaults there for you. Once you add the fields of information that you'd like to collect on your form, you can change the types. So maybe location, like you saw in our vehicle inspection form, that was a drop-down. So all you do for the drop-down, or to create a drop-down, is change its field type to be drop-down. When you do that, you'll see a drop-down tab appear where you can start adding items to that drop-down. So let's say we have location A and location B. Okay, and you're just really adding them here. You can also sync these items via TracerPlus Connect, so you can kind of hook these up to a database. But you can in this TracerPlus Desktop tool here, you can add your items to the drop-down. But you're really going through each one of these fields and configuring what you want to do with them. So location, again, that was a drop-down. So now we have a drop-down on our form with locations available. Part number, we may just want to leave that as text, so we'll leave that field type as text. Description, we may want to, like I mentioned before, make this field a lookup. So when you scan a part number, you just want the description to populate automatically. In that case, what you would do is configure a lookup. So you turn on a lookup so that it would attempt to find the data and fill it out in this field here automatically for the user. So when they scan that part number, they know exactly that they scanned the correct item for one, and they can see that description. You also have control over the flow of how you're entering data. So maybe from the location, we want to jump to part number. After part number, we just want to jump immediately to quantity. We want the user to key in a quantity right after they scan that part number. And then quantity, we may just want them to go back to the part number and auto-submit that data. So what that does is they select a location, they scan a part number, the cursor is then in the quantity field, they key in a quantity, and when they hit enter that, it saves that quantity, jumps the cursor back to the part number, and you're ready to scan the next part and key in another quantity. There's different validation settings. You can validate the data on the form. For version 8, there's new features for custom sounds for your validation. So if you wanted to, you can select a WAV file here, and you can do a custom sound for each field validation that may fail. So you can have different sounds based on different validation failures on your form so that the user, just by hearing that noise, knows exactly what they maybe missed on the form. So maybe they forgot to key in a quantity. They hear a certain sound, and they know, okay, they got to go back and select the quantity there. But you have a lot of control in validating the user input on your form before it gets sent either to your database or saved on the handheld. But really, you're just going through within TracerPlus Desktop here, configuring your forms as you need them. Once you configure all of your field settings or adding all the fields that you want, that's when you jump over to the form designer. Now, in the previous sample there, I showed you the vehicle inspection. That was a pre-built form. In this case, since I created this one from scratch, what I would do is jump over and maybe just click this Create Default button. When you do that, it builds the form based on the field settings that you've configured here in the field settings area. So now you have a default form based on your field settings, and if you were to deploy this to your mobile device now, you now have not only the vehicle inspection application available on your Android tablet, you may also now you have this inventory application. And maybe for this inventory application, like I mentioned before, you may want to turn on the RFID scanner so that you can begin scanning tags and maybe doing something like just pulling the trigger and reading all of the inventory in a room without really having the user do anything other than wave the RFID scanner around. But again, you can customize what this form looks like. So the form designer is a drag and drop tool where you just kind of move the form around. Maybe you want to add a company logo. To do that, you would just select an image here and put it on your form, and then select the image file. So you can customize what this looks like. You can also do a background image as well, which will scale the image to the full size of the form. Okay, but you're really just kind of customizing what this looks like, changing background colors and things like that. So if I were to try to make this a little bit prettier, I would just go ahead and add some different settings here. New for version 8, this little red dotted line here will show you the form extent that you're working with and what will be deployed to the device. You can also now drag outside of this area, so you can kind of use the rest of the form as kind of a scratch area for things that you may be kind of working on and don't necessarily want to put in the final area where you're creating your form. So you can kind of work in this area over here. In version 7 and previous versions, you'd have to scale the form temporarily, move things over here, and then scale it back before you deployed so that the items over here weren't visible. So again, yeah, you're just kind of designing what this form looks like. When you're all done, you can just go ahead and do a deployment to your device. So let me actually add one other form here. So let's say we added a fire extinguisher form to our application as well. This one we could do extinguisher ID. The location in this case could be a lookup or something like that. Maybe we're just taking a pressure reading. But again, for this form, you're going through and you're just adding the fields of information that you'd like to collect on your form, jumping over to the form designer and creating a form. For this one, let me scale this one a lot larger. let's make this one for a tablet. Let's go 1024 by 768 or something like that. That scales that, and if I actually now reset this form to the default by clicking on this, it'll now create a big form with our 3 fields, spelled that one wrong, with our 3 fields available on now a tablet-sized display. And at this point, you probably want to make this one a little bit nicer looking, but you can see how you can create something for a much larger display that would include something like an Android tablet as opposed to some of the older, smaller resolution Windows-based devices that you're familiar with in the past. Okay, but now you can see I have 3 completely different mobile projects in my mobile applications in my project here. And at any point, again, all you do is go down to the Build Deploy option here and do the deployment to the selected platform. So let's go, in this case, let's go back to Windows Mobile. I'll bring up my shared Windows Mobile device. You can see here our previous application was just vehicle inspection. If I go ahead and deploy this, it'll close down TracerPlus on the device, go through the deployment process just as it does with the Android side. When it's complete, it will open the application up, and now you can see our 3 forms are available from TracerPlus Desktop for these 3 completely different applications. I have vehicle inspection, the vehicle inspection form. I have my inventory form. You can see actually here, this is a good example of deploying the larger screen from my Android device down to Windows Mobile, and you can see how much smaller the resolution is on this device here. Okay. But if I were to jump back over to inventory, you can see our beautiful blue inventory form with our drop-down items available, location A and location B, that we entered through TracerPlus Desktop. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to go through today on the TracerPlus and TracerPlus Desktop side. I'll briefly touch on TracerPlus Connect for people that aren't familiar with our syncing tool and version 8 of that application as well. So generally, when you're all complete with setting up your mobile applications, so here's, let's say you're all done, you've set up your vehicle inspection, inventory, and fire extinguisher inspection forms. Now you want to set up where that data is going, and you want to set it up using TracerPlus Connect to sync it automatically to your backend database. So maybe you already have a system in place, a SQL Server database that would store all of this information. Well, you need a way to get the handheld forms to send data to that backend database table, or even it could be something like as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. To do that, if you're not using the local file export options that you have on the handheld, you would use TracerPlus Connect. Now, TracerPlus Connect 8.0 supports both Windows Mobile and Android-based devices, and it's a syncing tool that allows you to move the data to and from these mobile forms that you've created to a pre-existing database table, Excel spreadsheet, or text file. To do that, there's 2 options. Let me actually start from scratch here. If I delete my profile altogether, I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. So right now, this is kind of the home screen of TracerPlus Connect. I'm going to create a new profile. In version 8, you have 2 options. You have a sync profile and a live profile. The sync profile is like what you may be familiar with in the older versions of TracerPlus Connect. That allows you to set it up so that maybe through the cradle or through like a button action or a timer on your form, every once in a while, you can sync your handheld data with your ODBC or Excel data and sync it either through the cradle or over the air. And that moves the data from one spot to the other. So if I were to do that, let me actually pick my project here. I'm going to do a sync profile. What's the name of our project is Vehicle Safety Inspection. So I'm going to pick that project in TracerPlus Connect. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Create Profile. So if I were to create a sync profile, so let's say I wanted to move all of the data that I just collected in my vehicle inspection form to my database table, what I would do is add a new sync process. I want to download data from the handheld to my, say, Excel spreadsheet or ODBC data table, so the source of my data will be TracerPlus, because the source is coming from the handheld. On the destination side, you're picking where you want that data to go. So you could do something like an Excel spreadsheet. Let's say, I don't know if I have any samples here. I might have one. customer report, this one. You pick the destination side, and now when this sync profile is triggered, the vehicle inspection data on the handheld is going to move into this Excel workbook every time this sync process is synchronized. So you're moving the data from the vehicle inspection form to the Excel workbook in a, I don't know if this one has any worksheets, but it's going to be in a sync in a batch profile. There it goes. Okay, so you can see here now I have the different sheets available on the destination side. So every time if I were to sync my vehicle inspection form, it's going to go to this Excel file that I have on my C drive here. So it's going to move the data from the source to the destination. And that's called a sync profile. You'll see that since I selected that project, you'll see my 3 different sessions that I created within TracerPlus Desktop. So if I wanted to sync my inventory application, I would just go ahead and select the inventory session. And now every time this thing syncs here, it's sending the source data, which is now my inventory, to this Excel workbook on the destination side. If you wanted to configure the new live profile in TracerPlus Connect, you would create a new profile, make sure it's a live profile, select the same project that you were working on in TracerPlus Desktop, hit Create Profile, and now I have what's called a live profile. And a live profile, it's a little bit different in your configuration. You're selecting only the live data source. The live data source is basically the Excel workbook or the ODBC data table that you're using as your TracerPlus database. So rather than when you fill out your inspection form, it's not attempting to save it locally on the device. It's attempting to save it to, in this case here, I have this Acme Assets database. It's attempting to save it into this database table. And that's how you would configure a live profile. And again, a live profile or live session is a new feature for version 8.0. It allows you to, on the handheld, when you fill out this form, it's going to try to send it directly to this live data source that you have selected rather than saving it on the handheld. So it's going to try to push it over the air first. And that only require like a Wi-Fi or a WAN connection, a cell phone type data connection, in order to push that data over to the database that you have selected. Okay, so that's TracerPlus Connect. That's the syncing tool. We will be having future webinars on that application as well, and we do have some recorded on our website, but we will be adding new TracerPlus Connect webinars talking maybe in more depth about the live profiles and the sync profiles. But I did want to mention that today because it is a pretty powerful new feature of TracerPlus 8.0, being able to set up these live profiles. So you have a real-time connection from your handheld to your database table or Excel spreadsheet, wherever it may be.